Welcome, welcome, business owning moms, to my coveted maternity leave planning roadmap. Now, we are on episode number 14 of our maternity leave roadmap series takeover on the podcast. My hope is that we can create some digestible, implementable things that you can be doing immediately for your maternity leave. We've talked quite a bit about several different operational things inside of the business. I highly encourage, if you haven't heard all the episodes, go back, listen to them at 2x. Usually they're no more than about 8 minutes in length, and you can really get these nice bite-sized chunks. If you want all the episodes, all of the videos, all of the templates and all the things, go over to mastermaternityleave.com/roadmap and you can go ahead and purchase the $29 bundle. Only 29 bucks. And I put this together and it's amazing. So today what we're going to talk about is creating the first version of your maternity leave plan. So we've talked a lot about delegation. We've talked a lot about time management and all the different things. But really, I think putting something down on paper is where things start to feel a little bit real. And when I was having my first son, I had a really brash comment from one of our midwives. I was talking about creating the birth plan for my son. And I'd always thought that I was going to pursue an epidural for birth. And I started reading and I was like, kind of in the thick of being pregnant. Then, right around 22 weeks, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just try and go at this nice and organic. And so I'm not going to do any medication. And I decided to start creating my birth plan. And I asked the midwife, I was like, hey, I would like to create a birth plan. What particularly is going to be most helpful for you guys to see on this birth plan? And she made a joke that I thought at the time brash. She said, any birth plan that's more than 1 page in length always ends up in a C-section. And I kind of got jarred by that. I was like, oh my goodness, that felt really brash. And the thing that I think she was trying to say is the more you complicate a plan, the farther it's going to be from what you actually want. And if she'd said that to me, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So the same is true for our maternity leave plan. If we complicate it a lot, then it's going to be really cumbersome to put together. It's going to take over our whole workflow before we go out. And it's going to be something that feels like it's going to end up in something that you don't want. So creating the first leave plan, I often say keep it to a page. So 1 page. And really, you want to make sure that you are not overcomplicating this because it's really, really important to make sure that you've got all the bases covered. And we do this quite often. So, first and foremost, you want to make sure that you note your timeline. So, when is baby due? When are you going to kind of go into limited access mode? I really highly recommend that, especially toward the end of your pregnancy when you're like, hey, listen, I need to train my team on how to get stuff done without me. Too many moms work right up to the end of maternity leave and then they totally disconnect and they don't even know how to be. They don't even know how to stop. And I thought that was totally true for me. Honestly, both times, because I worked right up to the end with both of them. And then legitimately you have this baby and then it sleeps a lot. And then you're like, oh, or some babies sleep a lot, some don't. But then both my boys, I was very lucky. I had them on me and I was like, oh, I guess I could just close that loop that I had open before I went out on maternity leave. So don't do that. Try to close loops. Don't open up any new loops or new projects in the last month of maternity leave that you're not just kind of setting up for a deposit or you're teeing up for maybe when you come back. So baby's due date of limited access, tentative out of office date, and then a tentative return date, based on, your kiddo's timeline. Next is contact information. So best contact for your team, how to get in touch with you. I often call this the bat line. So one person should have the bat line to you, by the way. And then everybody else on the team needs to know exactly how to get in touch with the person who has the bat line and what particularly they should be contacting them for. Then we also need to know what the best contact is for clients. I often set up an autoresponder. I do this even when I'm on vacation. I do this when I have really heads down focused months of work that I'm doing or weeks of work. I'll turn on an autoresponder and be like, hey, listen, I'm only checking my email twice a week. And if you need this type of support, go here. If you need this type of support, go here. If you need something immediately, text me. And those types of things, there's seasons for that too. But you want to make sure that you've got that all ironed out for your clients and for your team, because what they're not going to want to see is they're not going to want to see you just go dark and not speak to them or be available for anything at all throughout the life cycle of the business. And I imagine a lot of, moms tell me this, that their team in the beginning might have some questions, or that they might reach out to your assistant or to your account director or something like that in the very beginning. But as you are off from the business, they start to figure out how to solve their own problems. And then when you come back, it's most likely that your team isn't floundering through making some of those baseline decisions. Third big thing is check-ins. So if you are going to be checking in on the business, if you want to take a look at Slack or answer some messages ad hoc, first of all, don't feel bad about working on maternity leave. If this feels like it's for you and you want to do it, then great. My hope with every woman that comes through the doors of Master Maternity Leave, that they can create the option and have the tools to either decide that they want to work or they don't. And so don't feel bad about working during maternity leave, as long as you're very, very clear with that boundary. Because I often find that for moms that do work during maternity leave, even if it's a small amount of things, if those aren't defined, then what's going to happen is that habit will continue, where your team is going to come to you to answer questions, to do particular things. You're going to be basically last line of defense for deadlines. And that's not a great place to be in, especially when you've got a newborn and you yourself are regulating your hormones and, working through kind of some of those challenges postpartum. So think through daily check-ins if you plan to have those. Weekly check-ins. I often find that meeting weekly with someone who has the bat line to you is important, or checking in some kind of daily communication with the person that has a bat line to you will be great. And then get on Zoom with your team like once a month. I actually did this with both my maternity leaves, even though I was taking some time off with Jack, my second kiddo. I jumped in and I was like, hey, this is the update. Here's how things are going with baby. Would love to hear like some wins or some challenges. I just felt like I had the bandwidth to be able to at least once a month earmark a meeting, and you don't have to schedule them all ahead of time. But I think it would be helpful to know that, like, even if you're off camera, because you're nursing or something like that, you can be able to check in with your team. It's really, really going to be, I think, critical for that. So that one-page maternity leave plan those are the three core components. I think at the end of the day, there are so many other things, of course, that you can prepare, but having those identified on a sheet that your team can come in and check and be like, oh yeah, I remember she's out till whatever date, that'll be super duper helpful for you. I have a template, our one-page maternity leave plan. It's all inside of the maternity leave roadmap. So if you go to mastermaternityleave.com/roadmap, you can get all the templates, all the episodes, all of the emails inside of a members area, and it'll be super supportive for you. Thank you so much again for joining me.